All right, just diving back into a conversation we opened up, I think, a week ago on a previous episode of Game Time. Check it out if you missed it. And every episode we've done to this point, you can find them all on our YouTube page, Game Time with John Eads, on our WAFB-9 YouTube channel. You can also find them right here on this website, or you can navigate to WFB's website if you want to take the scenic route, so to speak. And the conversation was kind of, what is the team looking like here as we head into the spring? Because I know that as you enter December and January and even February in some cases, it's really hard to keep up with college football, especially in this era. It's not like it was in 2016 where you had the newspaper, the old team. All right, he's back, he's back, he's back. Awesome. Now, I mean, you got players transferring on a random Wednesday, on a random Friday, and they're going from this school to this school, and there's so many people and teams to keep up with. So what I'm trying to do is give you a brief synopsis of what's happened, who is back, and how the team is looking like in bite-sized chunks, if you will. So I gave you the offense in the previous episode, who should be the quarterback, who's, names to watch for at receiver, the new coordinator, whatever, all that kind of information that was in that episode. I think that's the side of the ball that is a little bit more clear of a picture right now, and people are a little more optimistic about. But let's talk about this defense. So the coaching staff is pretty much completely new. I'll talk about it towards the end. And there's a decent amount of players coming back, but there's also a lot of concern with unanswered questions, unfilled position groups, things of that nature. So obviously, last year the defense was not good. And I don't mean to be so negative, but it just wasn't. And to prove that, I went through the NCAA's database of statistics, total defense, scoring defense, team sacks, run defense, pass defense, pretty much every statistic from a defensive standpoint. The best they got was 42nd, I guess, and that was for team sacks. But for everything else, they were bottom third, bottom half in college football, definitely towards the bottom of the SEC. Run defense was 85th. Pass defense was 115th. So they didn't really have a strength, one or the other. Usually with defenses, you'll at least be good at stopping the run or the pass. Scoring defense, they gave up 28 points per game, finished 78th in the country. Total defense, which incorporates yards, 105th. So they just weren't good. And I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm not trying to be overly pessimistic. They just weren't good all year long. And we know that by now. That was the side of the ball that held this team back last year. But coaching staff of last year's defense is out pretty much the entire thing. A few guys return. And they brought in a new DC, Blake Baker, new defensive line coaches, new linebackers coach, new safeties coach to try to fix this defense and make it better than it was last year, which, to be honest with you, it couldn't get a whole lot worse. I'm just spitting facts here. But I think the sentiment is it's going to be a lot better. Maybe not this year, though, because as I'm about to go through, every position group on this defense, there are concerns, so to speak. Let's start with the defensive line. At defensive end, I'm just going to give you the names you need to know and the important names in these position groups you'll see a lot of next year and hear a lot about in the offseason. Braden Swinson, you got to start with him. He's a rising senior, finished third on the team last year in TFLs, also had 35 tackles. This whole D-end room, really, we talk about the defensive line struggling last year. I don't think a lot of it had to do with the defensive ends. I think the defensive end room really came on strong towards the end of the season, and they're bringing back 4 very solid starters. So Swinson's a guy you certainly have to keep note of. He'll make plays next year. He's going to play a lot next year. Deshaun Womack, a rising sophomore who was a 5-star recruit. Maybe didn't look like it, kind of got off to a slow start, but it's tough to, emerge and become a household name as just a freshman in the SEC. But he had 13 tackles, a sack and a half. He made a big play in the regular season finale against Texas A&M that sticks in the back of my head. You got Savion Jones as well. A lot of veterans in this room. He's a rising senior, had 33 tackles, so he helped in the run game. He helped with really anything that was short yardage, but also could get after the quarterback, had 2.5 sacks, 7 QB hurries, which I think was the most that I saw amongst the defensive linemen. And then Paris Shand, another guy who is an older player, senior, transferred in, 18 tackles, 5 TFLs, couple sacks, couple pass breakups. He likes to get his hands up there and swat down passes. So defensive end room is going to be strong. D-tackle, though, is a different story, and it's a bit of a problem right now. There's 2 guys returning that are notable, I guess. Jacobian Guillory would be the most notable. He's a redshirt senior, going to be a redshirt senior. 27 tackles and 2 quarterback hurries last year. Played in a decent amount of games, But they brought in a transfer, Jordan Jefferson from West Virginia. He played over him. They had Mason Smith. They had Mekhi Wingo. All those guys are gone. Now Guillory gets to be the starter. So you don't really have that top-tier elite guy, and you really don't have depth either. Behind him, Jalen Lee, he's going to be a senior, transferred from Florida, I believe, and he's from around here. Played in 7 games, had a couple tackles for loss last year, but, not a stalwart, I guess, and still has a lot to prove, I think is fair to say. And then a guy named Preston Hickey, who's going to be a redshirt sophomore who logged no stats last year. And that's basically where the list ends for notable returners at that position. So I don't know if they can go to the transfer portal and get some guys, but D-tackle, as it stands right now on January 24th, not looking the best. Linebacker's a little bit better. 3 people returning that you all should know. Harold Perkins Jr. heading into his junior season. Really, I think, didn't have the year we thought he would last year. Didn't make that sophomore jump. Maybe he's in store for that next year, though. He still led the team in tackles for loss with 13, and he led the team in sacks as well at linebacker, which is impressive. He's known for his speed and ability to get to the quarterback and get in the backfield quickly. Also had 75 tackles, which was surprising to me because I feel like in most games this year, he really was a non-factor. And I don't know, maybe some of it's on him. I think a lot more of it is on the scheme and how they used him, so hopefully he gets used better next year. You also got Greg Penn III coming back for his senior season. Really just a solid, reliable starter at linebacker. Second on the team in tackles last year, 89, 6.5 tackles for loss. Also had 4 sacks and 2 picks. So he's a linebacker that will make every kind of a play to affect the game. He'll make tackles against the run. He'll get after the quarterback, but he can also drop back into coverage and make some plays in coverage, like he did against Texas A&M when he had that interception. So also a very well-spoken guy. And based on what I've heard from what he has said and media availabilities, whatnot, just seems to be the leader of that defense, and that's what you need. A younger guy, Whit Weeks, is back next year. He played a little bit this year, so he's heading into his second season at 49 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hurries. He's got a really quick burst, and he's a pretty sure-handed tackler. He really impressed me early in the season, and I wondered why he wasn't playing more after he got opportunities, and from what I saw, took advantage of said opportunities. Perhaps in store for more snaps next season. Again, maybe with a better defensive game plan. At corner, obviously one of the weaker spots on the team last year, whether it be because people getting injured, transfers just not panning out. I don't really have any more details on that. That's really all I could say about that. But you bring back a lot of people that could be good. We just don't know, really. So I'll give you some of the names. The one that I don't think is that much of a question mark is Zy Alexander. He played most games last season, led the team in pass breakups, also had 44 tackles, transferring in from Southeastern Louisiana. Took his lumps for sure. Transferring in from FCS to SEC is a tough adjustment, and I think that he needed some time to get his feet under him. But I think heading into a second year in the SEC, he's just going to be a lot better, learn from mistakes from last year, and I think he should be the lead cornerback for this team heading into next season. You got J.K. Johnson back, so to speak, a name that you probably forgot about because he transferred in last offseason from Ohio State with guys like Denver Harris and Deuce Chestnut and Zy Alexander, but he had a something in his leg he fractured, and that cost him the whole season, and I think that was shared preseason, so he didn't even play in a single game, which was a bummer. But at Ohio State, he started in 5 games in 2022 and had 20 tackles, but has no career picks, no career PBUs. So he's still kind of an unproven player, and he's coming back from an injury. So what could he present this year? Not sure. But if he's anything like he was before the injury, a lot of people thought he would snag one of those cornerback jobs before he ended up being sidelined. You've also got a couple of younger players. Ashton Stamps, he'll be a sophomore. We've talked about him on this show before. Played in 11 games, had 20 or so tackles, a couple pass breakups. Again, a freshman in the SEC at corner. Tough adjustment. Maybe he'll be better next season. Jeremiah Hughes, same story. He's heading into his second year, played in 13 games, so every game, and had 6 tackles last year. So played a little bit, not a lot, but did get a lot of experience, probably mostly on special teams. So 2 players that have been through a season, been through an offseason, and hopefully can take a second-year leap. And then another transfer, Jair Brown, coming in from Ohio State, just like J.K. Johnson, heading into his 3rd year of college football. played the most snaps of any freshman Ohio State defensive back 2 seasons ago, which is pretty notable, I think. About 200 snaps that year. Didn't play as much last season, though, which was interesting. Maybe they transfer portaled some guys in, or maybe he just got beat out for a job. Only played in 4 games last year. And in 2022, he had a little bit of production, a couple pass breakups, a forced fumble, but he's still a little unproven. But a guy that's played college football for now 2 seasons, and a lot at that, at least in his freshman year. So why not take a flyer on him and see if you can, produce there, develop. He's also a Louisiana guy. So, of course, his staff likes to bring back those Louisiana transfers that maybe go somewhere to start their career. They like to bring them back. And then let's round it out with safety. A lot of names in here. We got to find 2. I think the one that's most notable is Major Burns, senior. Led the team in tackles last year with 93. Also had a couple TFLs, a sack, a pick, a couple pass breakups. So he'll be a leader of that defense next season. So it's good to have at least him returning to, one less thing you got to worry about, I suppose. And he can maybe bring these younger guys along. You've also got players like Sage Ryan, a redshirt junior, a former 5-star who I don't think has hit his peak just yet at LSU. And last year he was forced to play corner. He had to play safety. He had to play like every defensive back position there was, simply because they needed somebody to play. So he's got a lot of experience, got a lot of versatility, had 42 tackles, a bunch of TFLs, 5 pass breakups. So he's someone they could put in a corner. He's someone they could put in at safety. I feel like he's most comfortable at that safety spot, though. And then a bunch of young guys. Ryan Yates, heading into his sophomore season, played in 13 games, every game last year, 16 tackles. Javian Toviano played in all 13 games. He'll be a sophomore. He had 33 tackles, so he played a little bit more at that safety spot. So you got some pretty good depth here at this position. And I think that if there's an injury, if you got to move some guys around, like put Sage at corner, you got players that can step in and play and have been there and done that at this point. And then 2 transfers. I think one is more notable than the other. 2 guys that used to be U-High Cubs, actually. Start with Austin Osbury, an Auburn transfer. He will be a redshirt sophomore, it appears. Played in 4 games last year, but has been a career reserve to this point. So what will he bring to this team? I guess we'll find out in spring ball, but I wouldn't slot him in as a starter right now. But has been through a couple seasons of SEC football, so why not? This is the one that I think is more notable. Jordan Gilbert. Texas A&M transfer, 4-star on 247 for transfer ranking. Played in 10 games 2 seasons ago. Was a key starter for the Aggies on their defense. And then everything was kind of building up to this year being his best season yet at Texas A&M. But he only played in 2 games and was sidelined with a shoulder injury, which is a bummer. But I think he's got a lot of potential still. And he started a majority of the season for A&M, and that's a team that has had great defenses the past few years. Say what you want about the team overall. They've played good defense, and he's played a lot of snaps of important, high-stakes, intensity football. So that's a guy I love adding to this defensive back room. That's a plug-and-play type of guy as long as he's back from that injury, fully healed, ready to go. 2 seasons ago, in more of a full season of work, he had over 50 tackles, 2 picks, and a PBU. So he, like Major Burns, is a guy that will help in run support and will just be a tackle hog. Like, he will just go after guys anywhere on the field, fly to the football, and make plays. So perhaps he comes back from that injury and is ready to play immediately, has a great spring, has a great summer, great fall camp. It could be Major Burns and Jordan Gilbert, your 2 starting safeties, or 3, however many they want to go with in the scheme, when it comes to the season opener next year. So you may have just snagged a starter out of that portal, something that didn't happen a whole lot last offseason. So that's kind of a broad strokes glance at how the defense is looking right now as we head into spring football pretty soon, hopefully sooner rather than later. At DN, you're looking good. At linebacker, you're looking good. Safety's looking fine. Corner and D tackle are the big question marks to me right now, and perhaps those problems can be rectified a little bit in the transfer portal and maybe also with coaching. Mentioned it at the top, the new coaches, Blake Baker, defensive coordinator. Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples will be coaching the defensive line. Bob Diaco, outside linebackers. Jake Olson, safeties. Corey Raymond, defensive backs. There's a couple other guys as well. I'm waiting for clarity on if they're still with the team, what their roles are going to be. But those are kind of a few of the many names that have been added to a revamped defensive staff. And, well, the defense wasn't good last year. It can't be much worse, but I think this team has potential with the new coaching, with some of the new players, new starters, maybe a new scheme, to be better than last year, but not just a little bit better, maybe a lot better. And that would certainly help this LSU football team in 2024.